Hi there, everybody. Nice to have you here. My name is Amelia, and I am one of the founders of Happy Nation NFT. We are bringing well-being to the NFT world, and with this collection, we will be able to support children's well-being. I am so excited to introduce to you today Ashley Rumschlag, CEO and President of DomesticShelters.org, one of our partner nonprofit organizations, to introduce to you her and her line of work. So hi, Ashley, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of DomesticShelters.org and your work. So I'm very excited to be asking you some questions today so that more can find out about you. So first of all, my first question for you today is introduce yourself. What is your role and function? I did say it already as well, but please, you can repeat it for us. And and how did you get into this line of work?
Sure. So yeah, my name is Ashley Rumschlag. I'm the CEO and president of Teresa's Fund and DomesticShelters.org. Teresa's Fund is our 501c3 nonprofit that operates DomesticShelters.org. And so how I kind of came into this role, I worked for many, many years in the hospitality industry and made a move in my life, moved geographically across the country in the United States, and was looking for a role that I could make a difference, really help people directly. And was very fortunate to find Teresa's Fund and DomesticShelters.org. And as I started to kind of unpack this issue of domestic violence, starting to really realize how complex it was. I had this initial misconception, as many do, that domestic violence is simply just physical abuse and, a black eye or bruises. And as I started to really unpack the issue, I started to realize this is an issue that isn't being talked about accurately and isn't really being talked about in a way that is helpful to kind of fix the issue. So I was really drawn to the issue as a whole. And then just the work that DomesticShelters.org was doing at the time and continues to do is really innovative. And they use technology and they use data and they use, just different new and exciting ways to combat issues that help support victims and survivors, as well as domestic violence professionals. So I was kind of drawn in to this issue just because I knew the work that DomesticShelters.org was doing was really effective, but also because I knew that there was a lot of work that needed to be done and that small things could really make a difference for people affected by domestic violence.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about DomesticShelters.org. So dive deeper into the organization and what is the bigger vision and mission behind it?
Of course, yes. So DomesticShelters.org was launched in 2014, really based around this idea that there was not one place that people could go online to better understand domestic violence, but also find out where their nearest domestic violence program or shelter or just general resources were available. So we created a database, and that database still lives on our site today. We work really hard with domestic violence programs and shelters and resources to make sure that information is always up to date. And so that's become kind of the core of how DomesticShelters.org got started, but it has grown so much. Starting off, we knew we needed to create content and other, information and things of that nature on the site to help it be found and really provide an all-encompassing, service to victims and survivors. But it's really grown beyond that. We try to help domestic violence victims and survivors through the content, through videos, through a Facebook group that helps people connect and help one another. But beyond that, we want to help the domestic violence professionals as well. And so what that looks like is the content that we offer victims and survivors is available to them to share directly with their clients. But also we host webinars that allow new advocates, seasoned advocates to learn something new that's going to help them help victims and survivors of abuse. We also have the wishlist program that allows anyone in the world to go to DomesticShelters.org and find a wish list for a program in the United States. And with a couple clicks, you ship diapers or laundry detergent or socks and underwear, all the things that make such a big difference for victims and survivors, because so many leave with nothing. They just
Oh,
walk out
wow.
the, or not walk out the door. Sometimes it's, they sneak out, or they leave in the middle of the day. They find ways to escape and go to these places where they are offered everything for free, because that's what they need. So the wish list program kind of just helps support that need for domestic violence service providers. And then also the last thing, or one of the last things that we do, is the Purple Ribbon Awards. And that's a recognition program that we started in 2021, was the first year for the program, where we actually recognize the heroes of the domestic violence movement. So it's been a really rewarding experience for our team, because we get to see the work that's being done. We get to communicate with those programs directly. And it's really been inspiring for everyone in the profession, because it just elevates the bar a little bit. It tells people, here's what other people are doing. And they start to think, hey, I can do that too. Or, that's a really great idea. We hadn't thought about that. And so it just really continues to elevate the field and help, create new and better ways to support victims and survivors of abuse. And that's kind of that common thread that runs through everything we do. That is to support victims and survivors of abuse.
So well-rounded. If there is someone who is listening to this today who thinks they may need your help, where can they go and get that help?
Yeah, so we encourage everyone to check out domesticshelters.org. If you're in the US or Canada, you're going to find that searchable database that you can search for your local program. If you are international and you're not in the US or Canada, you can go to nomoredirectory.org, and they have an actual worldwide directory of service providers, and they're a partner of ours. We really support the work that they're doing to kind of create that database for something that anyone in the world can find. But if you go to domesticshelters.org, regardless of where you are, we have English resources. So all of our content is in English, but you can find articles and videos and lists and things of that nature to help you kind of make sense of what you're experiencing, or make sense of what someone else is experiencing as well.
Mm-hmm. So this database is full of shelters in the US, but also in Canada.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. And it's not just shelters, it's programs as well. We try to really focus on any way that someone could reach out and receive help if they need it. So whether that's just a hotline where someone can speak to someone, or a full service shelter where they can actually go and find a safe space.
And I think it's also wonderful how you are providing content and training specialists to be able to help more people. So I think that's also just a fantastic initiative. How many people do you have at domesticshelters.org at the moment? How big is the organization?
Yeah, the team is pretty small. We have about 6 people that work directly with the project, and then some other advisors and consultants that we work with. So it's a very, very small organization, but I'm amazed daily at the amount of work and collaborations that we're able to kind of put out there. We try to be as efficient as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, nonprofits always start out small, right? And then with time, with the hard work, with consistency, and of course, a lot of impact along the way. I would love to hear from you, Ashley, an example of a heartwarming story or a moment where you realized, okay, yes, this fight is definitely worth the fight. This is worth it.
Yeah, we are fortunate when we hear those stories. A lot of those turn into our partners. They're people that we work with as they kind of, they transition from, experiencing abuse to helping others. But the first story that kind of comes to mind is a woman who we actually featured in an article. She experienced very, very severe physical, emotional, mental abuse. And, she was very sick, and she had a young child that she needed to raise. But she was realizing that she was no longer physically capable of doing that because of the abuse that she was suffering. And so, as many people do, not just when they're experiencing domestic violence, but when they have any issue that they need to find, it's just how to fix their car, where do they go? They go to Google. And so that's what she did. She with the little strength she had left, typed into Google, what she was experiencing, and there was domesticshelters.org for her. And she shares, this idea that that's where she found a blueprint for leaving. She found the strength to understand what was happening to her so she could start to, fight back against it. She found the nearest program near her so she could talk to an advocate safely. And she found the resources that she needed so that she could make a plan and find a way to leave. Because, as we see with many survivor stories, and what we need to remember is that survivors know their situation better than anyone else. They are the experts in their experience. And so what domesticshelters.org did for this woman and for other people is that we were kind of like a DIY, approach to domestic violence help, is that, you can take it at your own pace, do it in a safe manner. And that's what, helped this woman to eventually become, strong and find her way to safety.
And that's only one example, right?
That's just one example. Yes. Yeah. I mentioned some partners and some of those come to mind. We're working on a campaign right now with a woman out of St. Louis who says, she used domesticshelters.org to escape abuse and to really heal from it. And, that's why we do it. It's those individual cases of people who are finding the site, and we're fortunate, that the resource is being found by people.
Exactly. Wonderful. My last question for you today, Ashley, where would the resources go with a potential Happy Nation NFT donation to domesticshelters.org?
Yeah. So I mentioned that we're fortunate that domesticshelters.org is being found by people. But in order to get that exposure and to get in front of the right people, that does take resources and money to do so. So any support that comes into domesticshelters.org is used in kind of two ways. One is to create new content that helps to answer those specific questions, but also to get that content in front of people. So whether that be through social media campaigns or just events, things of that nature. So we're always looking for new ways of support to do that. And we also support we offer the Purple Ribbon Awards. So any money that comes into that can help offset the cost of that program, because we do support that program entirely on our own. So it's a really important program that we're always looking for people to help us build and grow that.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah, it's just wonderful work what you guys are doing there. And where else can we find you apart from the website?
Yeah, so obviously domesticshelters.org. And then also we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, and most recently we are on TikTok. So most of our handles I think all of our handles are at Domestic Shelters with an S, with the exception of Twitter. It is just Domestic Shelter. So we're pretty easy to find there. And we're using that platform as a way to just educate people on domestic violence, and hopefully create more of those connections of the information, so that people can kind of recognize that they're being abused and start to find help.
Ashley, thank you so much for introducing yourself and your work today. It is truly valuable, and I'm very happy that you were able to join us and tell us more about it today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.